All right, it is day 13. What? Already for our Own It for Good. And still talking about the body. And we're going to move to the brain today. And the brain is so much to talk about, it's going to take us a couple of days. But today we're going to talk about the anatomy of the brain. And so I've just got some diagrams that are going to go along with that to help us as we understand our complicated brains. Okay, the brain, the wonderful, wonderful, complicated, complex, intricate, runs the whole show brain. So this is we can't live without any parts of our body, but certainly without our brains. This is what makes humans humans, and our ability to not just think but to reason. And the cerebrum, so there's a lot of different components of the brain, and um, there's lobes, there's different centers of the brain where things are processed, there's parts within parts, there's hemispheres of the brain, the right and left hemisphere. But for today's discussion, we're going to stick with the broader components and then just talk about what each one of those components is responsible for. Um, so the cerebrum is probably the largest part of the brain, and it sits kind of at the top. And this is our sensing, thinking, feeling, learning, consciousness, voluntary movement part of the brain. The cerebellum is another important part, and this is where we have things, this controls things like fine muscle movement, balance, and those types of things. The hypothalamus, this area is responsible for the automatic function control of biological needs, like are you hungry, are you thirsty, telling you what your body needs. The medulla is the also another automatic processing part of the brains, but this does things like make sure that our circulation system is working, our heart is pumping, that we're breathing, all of those things that we don't even have to think about. I mean, just let's just stop and think about what we're covering here for a minute. Like, I'm going through it fast, but like, listen to what all of our brain does and all the stuff that it does, even on autopilot, that we don't even have to think about. Wow. Um, then we have our frontal lobes. This is part of the cerebrum, and this is where our decision making lies, and uh, finer emotions, impulse control, idea formation. So, part of the cerebrum. The hippocampus is part of the limbic system, and this is involved in our how we learn and storing memories. Last but not least is the spinal cord, and this is that long, part that goes down from the brain, that takes all of this stuff that all the different parts of the brain does and sends it down our spinal column to the rest of our body to tell it what to do. So when you move, even your little finger, like all of those things. So the things that are on autopilot, and then the other things that we actually have to like think about. Um, so, our just an amazing, amazing organ. And so when we talk about it within the scope of alcohol, and we of course ingest that through our mouth, but it quickly enters our bloodstream, which then gets, piped up to our wonderful, amazing brain. And, you know, we all know just, you know, either through experience or just the common knowledge that, alcohol is a depressant. And you hear things like this so many, many times that do you even really stop to think about what that means and the impact? of what that has on your life. And then you experience, as we learned yesterday, what the effects, the dehydrating effects of alcohol and on the body. But it's, we cannot take just one symptom that we want or one effect that we're looking for with alcohol without experiencing all of it. So let's dive in a little bit more on the next slide. So now that we have a basic understanding of the different parts of the brain and what they're each responsible for, then we can break down and just at a high level, and we're going to drill into more detail about why this is happening in the coming days. But for now, we'll just stay at a high level. And alcohol is a toxin, and the chemicals in it, when it reach our brain, have the effects on the cerebral cortex. This is what will cause our slurred speech or that buzzed, fuzzy feeling. And this is the thing that we're looking for. But if we don't stay by those generous CDC guidelines of, moderate drinking and have only our 5 ounces of wine or 1 beer, then we're going to get a little bit more than we maybe have bargained for or sought after. Because again, going back to our previous day, remember that quote, that wonderful quote, the man takes the drink, then the drink takes the drink, then the drink takes the man. So a little bit further into another part of the brain with the cerebellum, that's that big part of the brain that controls a lot of our thoughts and balance and movement. This is where we're going to start to feel that off-balanced or wobbly feeling that accompanies the fuzzy, buzzy feeling. The hypothalamus is where it's regulating some of those automatic functions of the body, but it's going to interfere. Alcohol is going to interfere with those. And so we might start to get that warm, cozy feeling that we like with the first drink or two. But what's actually happening behind the scenes is that our body is actually, while we're feeling warm, we're actually losing body heat and we're interfering with that temperature regulation that is really important to humans. Some people might even feel sexual arousal, but what alcohol does that we maybe haven't realized, and maybe we don't even care in the moment, is that we can't really follow through, if you know what I'm saying, on that desire, and our body can't perform the way it really is designed to. So again, alcohol is a depressant and it has an effect on all of our nervous systems. So if our feet can't perform well and our rest of our body movements are slowing down, that goes to every body part is not functioning the way that it's supposed to. So next time you want to get romantic, a lot of people do like to use alcohol to sort of ease their inhibitions. Getting that intimate with somebody is just that. It's intimate and it can be sometimes scary. But you're actually going to have some undesired effects that come along with that as well. The medulla, alcohol induces that, you get that sleepy feeling. Your breathing is going to slow down. Again, you cannot escape, not one part of the brain can escape the effects of alcohol. You're going to experience with the hippocampus short-term memory loss. These blackouts sometimes where we can't remember what happened the night before. This can also lead to long-term damage. And if I can, in the coming days, as we start talking about the chemistry and more of the whys, I can show you a picture of an alcoholic brain or somebody that is a long-term drinker, more than a moderate drinker versus what a healthy brain looks like. And our brains actually shrink over time with alcohol use. But I'm going to leave you with some good news today. And we'll talk again more about this in the coming days. But if you quit drinking and you have abstinence, or even cutting back, you're going to see improvement. But this has to be significant cutting back. But with abstinence, you will see in as little as 2 weeks some improvement in overall brain function. And then it can take up to a full year, though, for everything to come back fully to pre-alcohol consumption days. And again, that's different per person. But even within a few months, within 3 months, comparing and somebody who has quit drinking and the return of their brain function is significant as compared to somebody that just takes maybe that shorter 2 to 3 week break and then goes back to moderating. So you're really not going to see the long-term benefits and get a lot of significant brain function back without taking a pretty extended break of abstinence from drinking. So in my mind, that's really good news for me and my brain and motivation to stay on this alcohol-free journey.